My name is Sam. When I was a kid growing up in the isolated farming town of Blackwood, there was a rumor. They said a pig-headed beast with the body of a man roamed the dense, foggy peaks of Blackwood Mountain. They said it only came down when it rained, creeping through the mud to find its prey. Everyone in town was terrified of it. No one dared to step outside when the skies turned gray. That was until a local hunter and butcher named Hollis caught it. He dragged the beast down from the mountain, binding it with heavy iron chains. When the townspeople gathered to look at it, they saw exactly what the rumors described. A grotesque, squealing creature, half man, half swine. Hollis kicked the beast to the ground. It squealed just like a farm pig. Hollis laughed, wiping the mud from his face, and shouted, "Who wants to buy some fresh pork?" The crowd murmured in shock. Someone asked why he was charging money since they were all neighbors. Hollis rolled his eyes, pointing to the deep, bloody gashes on his legs. "I nearly got bitten to death catching this freak of nature. You don't pay, you don't eat." But then he leaned in close and whispered the real selling point. Our town, Blackwood, had a curse. Nobody lived past the age of 60, except for old man Hollis, who was completely blind but healthy as a horse. He claimed eating the beast's meat would break the curse. That was all they needed to hear. The villagers lined up, throwing whatever cash they had. Hollis raised his sharp cleaver and drove it right into the beast's neck. A deafening, ear-piercing squeal echoed through the valley as blood poured onto the soil. My grandfather William, who was 59 and terrified of his approaching birthday, managed to buy the two severed ears. He brought them home, grinning from ear to ear, declaring it his ticket to a long life. My grandmother boiled them and served them up. Grandpa took a huge bite, chewing loudly, his face contorting in pure bliss. Grandma urged me to eat, saying it was a delicacy, but the smell, the stench of raw rot hit my nose and I gagged. I spat the meat onto the floor. Grandpa cursed at me, calling me ungrateful, and ate my portion too. As I watched him eat, I noticed something horrifying. Grandpa's face seemed wider. The skin on his neck was expanding, swelling outward. Deep, unnatural wrinkles were forming on his snout. I mean, his nose. "Grandpa," I whispered, "why is your neck getting so big?" Grandma leaned in, squinting, but brushed it off. "You're seeing things, Sam," she scolded, but I knew what I saw. As he swallowed the last bite of the pig ears, the lights in the house flickered and died. That night, a violent thunderstorm rolled in. Thunder shook the floorboards. I was too scared to sleep. Sometime past midnight, I heard the front door creak open. I peeked out and saw Grandma stepping out into the freezing rain, completely in a trance. I tried to scream for her, but then I saw it. Looming right behind her in the downpour was a massive, hulking figure with the head of a pig. It was a pig-headed monster, exactly like the one Hollis had killed. It followed Grandma into the dark woods. I was too terrified to move. I locked the door and hid under my blankets, my heart pounding out of my chest until the morning sun finally broke through the clouds. The next day, some young men from the village carried a wooden plank up to our porch. A blood-soaked white sheet covered the remains. It was Grandma. Her body had been completely mutilated, torn apart by something ravenous. Grandpa William stood there, his eyes completely hollow. Hollis the butcher spat on the ground and said, "That damn beast, it came for revenge. We have to hunt it down." The blind man of the village stepped forward. "Burn the body," he demanded. "She died a violent, cursed death. If you don't burn her, she will turn into something worse. Her soul will never rest." But Grandpa William snapped. His voice was oddly guttural, almost like a grunt. "No. My son Tommy is coming from the city. He needs to see his mother one last time." That evening, my Uncle Tommy arrived with his wife and their 2-year-old son, Connor. Tommy had moved away to the city years ago, the only one of us to escape Blackwood. When he saw his mother's mangled corpse, he broke down. Grandpa forced me to sleep in the west wing, keeping watch over the body himself, but in the middle of the night, a crack of lightning woke me. I heard frantic footsteps. It was Tommy's wife. "Connor is missing!" she screamed, tearing through the house. Uncle Tommy grabbed a flashlight, ready to run into the storm to find his son. But Grandpa stepped in front of the door, blocking the exit. "It's raining," Grandpa said, his voice deep and echoing. "No one goes out in the rain." Tommy lost his mind. "That's my son out there. Move!" But Grandpa didn't budge. He grabbed Tommy by the throat with impossible, unnatural strength, lifting him off the ground. For a second, as the lightning flashed, I saw Grandpa's face. It wasn't human anymore. His eyes were small, black beads, and his jaw had completely shifted into a snout. Tommy saw it too. The fight just drained out of him as he stared into the face of a monster. We never found Connor. My name is Leo. Blackwood County has a lot of dark secrets, and my family's farm held the worst of them. Years ago, before my Uncle Toby left for college, a skeletal drifter had stumbled onto our property. He smelled of rot and death. My grandma gave him a piece of bread, and in return, he pointed a crooked finger at our massive pig pen. "Slaughter them all," he rasped. "Kill every last pig, or the wrath of hell will swallow this house." My grandpa beat the man bloody and threw him off our land. We were a pig farming family. A week after the drifter left, during Uncle Toby's summer break, our oldest sow went into labor, but something was wrong. She was screaming in agony. Grandpa and Toby went to deliver the piglets, and I followed closely behind. What came out of that sow defies all logic. It wasn't a piglet. It was a malformed abomination. It had the body of a swine, but its head looked entirely human. Uncle Toby stared at it, the color draining from his face. He didn't look confused. He looked terrified, like he knew a secret so dark it could shatter his mind. "Kill it!" Toby shrieked, his voice breaking. "Kill that thing right now!" Grandpa didn't say a word. He grabbed his butcher knife, walked into the pen, and began a massacre. He slaughtered the sow. He slaughtered the abominations. But in the chaos, the pen broke open, and a few of the older, mutated pigs escaped into the woods. The karma didn't end there. A few nights later, a massive storm hit. The remaining mutant pigs broke into our house. They cornered Uncle Toby. They tore him apart, biting off his head. Then they went for Grandpa. I watched as they ripped his ears clean off his skull. The screams were deafening. Grandma grabbed me, her face pale as a ghost, and dragged me out the back door. She sold whatever we had left, and we fled the county that very night. We moved to the city, changed our names, and never spoke of the nightmare again. I locked it away in the deepest recesses of my mind. 15 years passed. I grew up, went to college, built a normal life. But the past always catches up. Grandma was diagnosed with terminal cancer. In her final weeks, her mind began to slip, and she begged to go home. She wanted to be buried in Blackwood. I couldn't say no. I was all she had left. We returned to the village and stayed with our old neighbor, Tom Vance. The town looked exactly as miserable as I remembered. When we walked into Tom's house, his wife came out to greet us. Her name was Clara. She was mute, her eyes wide and vacant. But the moment I looked at her, my stomach dropped. I knew her. I couldn't breathe. I stumbled out of Tom's house and walked toward the ruins of my family's old property. I stood in front of the rotting wood of our old pig pen, and suddenly, like a dam breaking, my repressed memories flooded back. I remembered why Uncle Toby screamed that day. I remembered what my grandfather had been hiding in the darkness. And I remembered Clara. She wasn't just a neighbor's wife. She was one of the women my grandpa had kidnapped and chained up in the pig pen. The curse of Blackwood wasn't supernatural. It was a town built on human trafficking and unspeakable, depraved abuse. My grandfather, the men of the village, they were monsters. And those half-human pigs, they were the horrific evidence of what they had done to those women in the dark. Tears streamed down my face. My family wasn't cursed. We were the curse. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. I told the operator everything. I told them about the farm, about Tom Vance, about the bodies buried in the mud. I hung up the phone, gasping for air, staring back at Tom Vance's house in the distance, and right at that exact moment, a blood-curdling, agonizing scream echoed from inside the house. It was Grandma. Clara had recognized her. The woman my family tortured had finally taken her revenge. And as I stood there in the cold dirt, listening to the screams fade into the night, I didn't run to help her. I just turned my back and walked away into the darkness.